Folks, you have undoubtedly heard me say that I believe transactions are going to slow way, way down in the second half. I do think in the residential space, we could break below 3.88 million, which is the cycle low. But I want you to realize a slower market equals opportunity for more creativity. I believe there will be more seller financing deals done in the next 6 months than were perhaps done in the last 2 years. Why? Because some sellers have to sell. And instead of taking a ridiculously low cash price, they may take a decent seller financing. And of course, the number one tool that I want all one rental at a time fans to understand is something we call the 50, 40, 10. We're going to talk about this again with Stephen Dow from Velocity Mortgage. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good yourself?
I'm doing well. Do that marketing spiel so they don't get mad at you or I.
Yes. Again, although I work happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital, all the ideas and topics discussed on this channel are that of my own. So let's get it going.
Yeah, so let's break down the 50, 40, 10 because a lot of new followers, a lot of new viewers don't understand just how powerful this is. And you know what? We're going to start with the smallest number, the 10. So what we are potentially talking about doing is allowing an investor to negotiate a transaction on an investment property, which might be a little house, could be a 5-unit building, could be a 50 or 100-unit building where they are only required to bring 10% down, correct?
Correct. Any combination up to a maximum of 90% CLTV as far as what I can provide in the way of a first mortgage, combined with what the seller is willing to carry. So it totals a maximum of 90% CLTV or combined loan to value. So that allows the buyer to put down as little as only 10%.
Yeah, it would not shock me in the next 6 months if we have some one rental at a time fans and students buy 20, 30, 40, 50-unit buildings with 10% down because of this program. So let's keep walking up the chain. The next smallest number is 40%. Again, the 50, 40, 10 keys on 90% CLTV, 10% down. 40% in this example, again, the math could be different, is a seller carryback second mortgage or second lien on the property, correct?
Correct. We only provide the first mortgage. So however you can get this, I guess, secondary financing or financing behind my first, whether it be through the seller or private investor or lender, it wouldn't really matter to us.
Yeah. And the beauty of this program, when you do it right, it will actually allow you to quote unquote pay more, and you could get a blended interest rate lower than first mortgages. So how do you do that? Well, again, in the example, let's assume it's a $2 million apartment building. Let's assume it's a $2.5 million apartment building that they'll sell for $2 million given condition, whatever. You might be able to buy it for cash for 1.5. They don't like that. They're going to do $2 million. You bring 200K down. They carry back in this example 800K. But what you're going to ask them to do, because you're paying more than the property is worth, at least in its current condition, is you're going to take back that 800K at, say, 2% interest rate. Maybe they carry back at 2% interest rate with no payments for the first 3 years because you have to turn units. Maybe, you have a 10-year balloon, right? There's lots of creativity you can do on that second mortgage, correct?
As far as whatever the terms are, you mean?
Yeah, terms. You can get really
Pretty
creative.
much. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just all where get in where you could fit in, so to speak, where maybe you give the seller closer to their price or maybe a little bit more, but hopefully they can provide the terms you need to kind of set it up to motivate you to want to buy. Obviously, cash flowing from day one with 10% down, very hard, very strong motivation.
Yeah, very, very hard to do. I actually heard somebody talk about this program once and said, basically the 50, 40, 10 allows me to pay yesterday's price and get yesterday's interest rate, which I thought was a great way to look at it.
Obviously, with certain circumstances that it would allow you to. Yes, I've seen that before, 100%. So it's a kind of a creative tool, depending upon what your circumstances are, the rate environment. But if the seller had enough equity and the rents are high enough, you can really structure a win-win situation for everyone involved.
Yeah. And then just to round out the story, the 50-40-10, we've done the down payment. We've done the seller carry. The first in this case is obviously with velocity. And the
Right.
reason we call it the 50-40-10 is the 50% allows velocity to give one of the lowest rates possible, correct?
Correct. Correct. So that's the ideal loan kind of setup. But I've done loans where it was like a 70-20-10, 75-15-10, you know what I mean? So it just all depends on that specific, situation and what works best for everyone involved.
Yeah. And then obviously the 50-40-10s has lots of permutations. Obviously, you're going to have to work on the spreadsheet. What is the price? What is the blended interest rate, which is the first and the second combined? There is a math formula. We posted it in the school community if you guys want to see it, so you can create it your own. But if somebody wanted to reach out to you, because again, I think somebody in the school, somebody in the one rental at a time community is going to buy a 50-unit building with the 50-40-10. They're going to cash flow day one. They're going to get a blended interest rate in the sixes. They're going to have potentially 30-year debt. Maybe the second has a 10-year balloon, but maybe not. Maybe it's 30 years. There's
Right.
so much goodness. The seller walks away with 60% of the cash and 40% in a note in a secured second. The seller reduces tax liability because 40% of that's on an installment loan. There's just so much goodness in the 50-40-10. More people need to reach out to you and talk about it. How could they reach out and say, hey, help me understand this crazy thing?
Email is probably going to be the best. Again, that's to SDAO@velocitymortgage.com. In the subject line, please put the acronym ORAAT to make it past the firewall. The body of the email, brief description, what you're looking to do. Property address would be the most helpful, at least city and state, so I know that I can lend there. Your mid-FICO score, best phone number to reach you at, and typically 24 to 48 hours, I'll typically be in touch.
Yeah, the other thing you mentioned off air that we'll just throw here at the end is you have a Fast 50 program for folks that don't
Right.
have a credit score. What the hell is that?
Well, I've found that it's been quite effective recently, just because of circumstances, lifetime event, lifetime kind of event where somebody maybe passed away, family member, somebody might have lost their job, wherever the case may be, divorce. Sometimes you have hiccups in your life that causes credit challenges, which now causes you challenges trying to get financing. So we've got a product where you don't even need a score. You know what I mean? Our normal minimum to get the max LTV is 650, but let's just say you're like in the 500s. I can still provide financing on a 30-year fixed loan, 30-year amortized, sometimes even in the single digits. So just depends on the overall, circumstances. But I found that that's been pretty useful, at least with my specific clients. So I just thought I'd throw it out there.
No, I think it's wonderful. Again, folks, remember, we are heading into a slow period. I do think, unfortunately, it will be the slowest period of my investing career. And again, when I say slower period, that is for real estate agents. If you are an investor, and I say that, your eyes should open wide, because you're going to be able to you're going to be able to find motivated sellers. And if you are good and you are consistent, you will be able to find motivated sellers that will entertain creative financing like the 50-40-10. Do me a favor, email Stephen Dow, sdow@velocitymortgage.com. In the subject line, 5 simple letters, ORAAT, to get by the firewall, and he will be the man to help you. Stephen, have a great week.
You too, buddy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother.